When it comes to computing, we can all express our frustrations at technical incompetence, be it software or hardware related bugs and glitches and things like that. But there's no doubt about it, the nastiest, most infuriating aspect of computing is the computer virus. I'm not really sure what the reasoning is behind why these lowlifes decide to make these bloody things. I mean, clearly they haven't got any kind of a life, and they've got an axe to grind against the system or society or whatever it is. Maybe they have a god complex, maybe they just simply want to rage against the machine and stick it to the man, but unfortunately, it's just innocent people that are the ones who are mostly affected. But the question is, where and when did the computing virus come from? Well, for that answer, we have to go back to 1949. A mathematician by the name of John von Neumann proposed the idea of a self-replicating program, which he described as acting much like a virus from the real world. But it wasn't until the 1960s when a group of programmers developed a game called Core Wars, which had a rather unique function. It would replicate itself every single time it was run on a computer. And consequently, it would replicate itself so much that it would actually saturate the computer's memory. Now, what's really interesting about this story is that the developers of Core Wars also worked on an application called Reaper, which was an antivirus application specifically designed to destroy core wars of an infected computer. And that actually adds some credence to the conspiracy theory that antivirus software companies actually create the viruses. I'm not saying that they do, but from this story you could see why a lot of people would believe that. In the 1980s, MS-DOS was fast becoming the most popular OS on the planet, and that's when viruses really started coming thick and fast. The OS was targeted by very malicious viruses such as the brain virus, which infected boot sectors of a computer's hard disk and made them inaccessible. And in 1986 we had a major milestone, the world's first Trojan virus called PC Write. By the end of the 80s, virus makers were starting to realize that the best way of creating viruses wasn't to create applications that had to be executed, but to actually infect system files on a computer. And in 1988, we had the Morris worm, which infected over 6,000 computers, which doesn't seem that much now, but at the time, that would have been a lot. Of course, in the early 90s, the advent of the internet and email now meant that viruses could be created and spread far easier. In fact, with the emergence of application suites like Office, and in particular Word and Word Basic, viruses can now be written very, very easily on both Macs and PCs, and subsequently they were spread like wildfire. There was an exponential growth in the number of viruses being proliferated across the globe via email attachments, and this is when viruses really started to kick off. Now, it was around the time of the mid-90s that we sadly also started to see the creation of the types of malicious code we see nowadays all the time, and those were macro viruses. Things like 1999's Melissa virus. Melissa was also known as W97M/Melissa, and it executed a macro within an attached file from an email. This in turn would forward it to 50 people in the user's Outlook address book. It also infected other Word files and then emailed those out as attachments. Melissa would be followed later that year by Chernobyl, which caused widespread hard drive damage. Then in 2000 we had the now iconic I Love You virus, which I remember very well indeed, and it functioned a great deal like Melissa. However, it was much more malicious because it would delete media files like MP3s and JPEGs and things like that, but also email usernames and passwords to the creator of the virus. Nice. In 2001, we had the Code Red worms 1 and 2, which infected over 700,000 machines globally and caused over $2 billion worth of damage. Nowadays, there's never been a greater variety of nasty, nefarious applications just waiting to infect your machine. Adware, spyware, malware, and cyber phishing websites are just some of the challenges that IT professionals and support technicians face on a daily basis. We've all seen things like zero-day exploits and, of course, ransomware, which locks up your system and demands cash in exchange for releasing control of your computer. We've even got worms now that will covertly commandeer your system's GPU and use its raw power to mine bitcoins. Then there's bugs that can be exploited a lot like viruses, such as Heartbleed and Shell Shock, which are particularly dangerous if you're going to buy items online. The truth is, the computing virus phenomenon has become a multi-billion-dollar industry, both in terms of the insurance that users can pay, the investment that they're expected to make in protection, but also in the maintenance fees and repair fees that they can pay to third-party tech support companies. As always, be very careful online, particularly when it comes to any dubious links that are sent to you in email form or indeed on Twitter, and never open any questionable attachments. So guys, in today's tech question, I'm going to ask you, what was the very worst virus infection you ever had on a computer? I've had a few really bad ones in my time on Windows XP. That was the last major infection that I ever had. One in particular that forced me to do an old-fashioned scrub and reinstall because I simply couldn't boot up into Windows anymore. The truth is, viruses are just an unfortunate reality of computing, and one that I wish the authorities would take far more seriously than what they appear to be. Anyway guys, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, and of course please hit that big red subscribe button to keep up to date on all the latest content on this channel. You can follow me on Twitter at Lax78, Computing Forever is over on Facebook and Google+. Check out my previous video over on the left hand side, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.